you could just continue to use your workforce toolbox. And remember, this should be the only file named tribal data toolbox _ version 3.0 .mdb on your computer. So now I'm ready to begin the final data review and validation process. And I'm going to demonstrate this process for ozone, PM2.5, and the meteorological data that I imported. Remember that I complete the initial review process when I import the data into Toolbox. And that consists of the Toolbox running those checks on the data based on the concentration, ranges, and other things, and assigning flags are qualifiers based on those checks. I also wanted to mention there is an intermediate review process you can complete with the Toolbox if you have obtained additional external information that was not available during the import. For example, perhaps you forgot your logbook at the site when you downloaded the data and you did not have it during the import into the Toolbox, but you have it now. Since many people don't complete the intermediate review process, I'm not going to demonstrate this. However, if you are in a situation where you need to complete this intermediate review because you have information that was not available to you during the import, or you simply forgot to flag data that should have been flagged, you can access the form and additional flags from the main switchboard of the Toolbox. Remember, to access the main switchboard, you click on this option. I'll show you quickly. Here is the logbook and external information data flagging button, and you would click on this button to complete that process. And for guidance on completing that process, you would use the click here for help file button to open the SOP for guidance on how to use the form. And if you have any questions on using the form, of course, we are always available to assist you with that. So I'm going to go back to the opening screen of Toolbox and talk a bit more about what the final data review process involves. So it involves reviewing data that you have already flagged and invalidating any flagged data that you deem not valid. So you invalidate data by assigning invalidation codes. These are also called AQS null value codes, and the data that you invalidate are excluded from charts, reports, and AQS files that you subsequently generate with the Toolbox. In the AQS ready file, an invalidated data record will appear as a null value with the invalidation code you assign in these steps. So there are a couple points to be aware of about the final data review process. Even if you don't submit your data to AQS, or you're not planning on submitting your data to AQS, it's important that you complete the final data review process so that your reports and charts that you can generate with the Toolbox include only valid data without error codes, because the value of some data loggers or samplers log an error as -6999, and if that is shown in your chart or your report, that's going to look pretty funky. So you want to make sure that you invalidate that data if you're going to run reports and charts with the Toolbox. You might need to refer to your logbooks or QC records to determine the appropriate invalidation code to assign to the data. So make sure you have your field logbook and your database logbook handy. In most cases, you should only invalidate data that you've already flagged. And finally, you should complete the data review process at least quarterly or more often as you see fit. It's definitely easier to review less data at a time, and you're more likely to remember why data are flagged if you complete the final data review process soon after you import your data. I personally like to complete the final data review process right after I have imported a data set into the Toolbox. So for me, I like to do data validation on a 2-week basis. So every time I import a file, I like to immediately do the final data review process.